This video was originally meant to be a review of these guys, the Spectacles 3 by Snap. But over the last few weeks, while I've been testing these things on holiday, a couple of things have sprung up, both about the spectacles themselves and Snap's hardware division as a whole. I believe they have got it completely wrong. They have got some great ideas, but they are so badly executed that they are doomed to fail from the start. So today I wanted to go over the brief history of Snap's hardware division and discover each of the products and why I think they have failed and the worrying trend that I believe Snap has started here. So sit back, relax, grab a coffee and enjoy a trip into the Snapverse. Hello everybody, my name is Robert and this is Clue. Let's cast our minds back to 2011. Social media was still in its infancy, and to be honest with you, apps weren't really a thing. There were 3 Stanford students who came together and created an app called Peekaboo. It allowed you to share pictures, video and message content that would disappear after a short period of time. After just a couple of months though, one of those founders was kicked out of the company and it was reformed as the Snapchat that we know and love today. If you ask either of Snap's founders right now what Snap is, they will quite happily tell you they are not a software or hardware company. They are in fact a camera company. Now let's cut through all of the bullshit there and actually get to the real meaning behind Snap and what they're trying to do. Snap wants to reinvent how we use the camera, using technologies such as machine learning to allow us to use the camera in new, innovative, accessible and fun ways that will change the future for the better. So now we know the brief history of Snapchat, or now Snap, and exactly what it was and what their goals are as a company, let's talk about their first product and their first failure, and that was the Snapchat Spectacles. The Spectacles, originally released in 2016, were basically sunglasses that had a camera on one of the sides and allowed you to create 10-second snaps hands-free. You just simply press the button on the side and it would capture that snap. At the time, this was fairly innovative. We hadn't seen a ton of different glasses on the market that could do this. There was of course the Google Glass, but they were incredibly expensive and had other hardware that really wasn't necessary for what Snap was trying to achieve here. What they had actually done was create a pair of smart glasses that allowed you to communicate hands-free while still looking stylish and not like a pair of smart glasses. Now, for all of their failings, the Spectacles actually drove quite a lot of hype, both on social media and the more mainstream media. People were excited about these things and believed that they could be the future of wearable tech. But then Snap did something that I believe killed the product before it was even fully released to the public, and that was creating scarcity. The way they did this was you could only buy spectacles if you were to find one of the Snap bots that were hidden all around the world. There were some in the US and some in Europe, but they were few and far between. If you were lucky enough to be near one of these bots, you could go ahead and part with your $129 and get a pair of spectacles in return. Now, don't get me wrong, I see why Snap did this. It did excellently for marketing this product and what Snapchat does, because these things were really cool and that scarcity meant that people wanted it just that little bit more. But then there was the issue that it took them around 10 months before they would start to sell the spectacles online to a more mass market. And by that point, all the hype had just died surrounding these products and nobody really bought them. To the point that Snap made a £14 million loss through just creating too much product that they simply couldn't shift. It wasn't just the procurement that was the issue either. The actual hardware was flawed. Primarily, the case was simply too big. This thing was enormous and bulky, and you actually kind of had to carry an extra bag around if you wanted to carry these glasses anywhere with you. Furthermore from that, there was just a bigger issue in general, and that was you could only take videos up to 10 seconds. There was no photographs that you could take, And you couldn't take anything longer than 30 seconds. You could click once, twice, 3 times, and it would do 3 10-second clips stitched together. But that really was it. And transferring all of this data to the Snapchat app took a very long time. Once it was there, you were kind of stuck as well. You couldn't export it and share it on other social medias. You were kind of stuck inside of Snapchat's ecosystem, and a lot of people just lost interest very quickly because of this reason. It wasn't all bad though. The camera itself was actually very, very impressive. It had a 115-degree field of view, which meant that you had a much wider field of view, and it would create these circular videos that would allow you to take your phone and tilt it in any angle, be that vertically or horizontally, to get more or less of the data around. It was a really interesting concept, and something that I think really could have taken off if Snap had spent a little more time refining both the hardware and the software surrounding it. Perhaps worst of all though were some of the stats coming away from them releasing the first version of these spectacles. As mentioned earlier, they lost $40 million just because they created too much of these products. They just couldn't shift them. But then again, the people who did buy them, over 50% of them just stopped using the product after only a week of use. They just found they got chucked in a drawer and forgotten about because of all of their hardware shortcomings. So a bad case design, restrictive software, and forced scarcity meant that the first version of these products just were doomed to fail from the start. But that's okay. We all start off with something bad and then we can refine it to make it better, right? And that's what Snap did. A couple of years later, they released the Spectacles too, and these things were going to be amazing and perfect, right? Well, no, not really, but let's talk about that in just one moment. Before we get on to the second version of the Spectacles though, I would just like to say that if this is the first time that you're seeing my face on your screen, then 1, lucky you. And 2, go down there, hit that subscribe button, smash that bell notification icon so you get notified every time I upload. So just 2 years later, after the release of the first version of the Spectacles, Snap was ready to release their second version, with a $20 price bump, and they've done away with all of those Snap bots, so these were commercially available from the start. They also managed to address many of the hardware and software issues that plagued the first version of the product, so actually, it looked like on paper Snap was onto a winner here. But that simply wasn't the case, and here are a few reasons why the second version also failed badly. Number 2 was a lot lighter and less bulky than the first, both in the glasses design and in the case as well. It was to the point that the case was small enough that it could probably fit in a pocket or a bag, and you wouldn't have to carry around a separate bag just to carry around your glasses. This also didn't affect battery life. With both of these you could get about 70 snaps, and you could transfer those to your phone as well. Talking about those snaps, you were able to take video, much like you were before, but also with a hold of the button, you could also take still photos, and this was a big deal for many people. The camera itself was generally better too. The pixel density was up 25% from the first one, so videos and images looked a lot better than they did in the first version. It was also a lot quicker to transfer all of that content over to the Snapchat app, and then you could export it as well and use it across all of your social medias. You were no longer tied in to just using the Snapchat app and its ecosystem. So these were all absolutely brilliant things. What went wrong though? I think actually the problem was that they didn't do what they did with the V1 Spectacles. There was absolutely no hype or fanfare. Nobody really knew these things had been released. It was quite a quiet launch from Snap. So people just didn't know that these things existed, and they didn't look any different from the first version. So people didn't know that they were massively different and massively upgraded from the first. So here's my issue with V1 and V2 of the Spectacles and across all of Snap's products. They are absolutely amazing ideas in premise. Being able to take videos and images without having to whip your phone out, you can quickly just grab the content that you want to grab. It was unique in that you could move between that horizontal or that vertical filming whenever you wanted to. It also had great camera tech, and that is what Snap is known for. These were very, very competent cameras. However, the software and the hardware that went alongside those cameras just simply couldn't live up to the rest of the hype that Snap had generated around the first generation of the product, so the second just flew under the radar. Just 1 year after the flop of the Spectacles 2, Snap was ready to move on to Spectacles 3, which is the ones that I have here and I've been testing out for the last few weeks. This was a much higher end version of the Spectacles and actually seemed like it could do very well once again because of its range of new features. But with its eye-watering price tag of $330, that is double what the original ones were selling for. It just really stopped half of the market from wanting or being able to buy these things because they priced themselves out of the market altogether. Nobody was willing to pay that extremely high price tag because of how rocky the launch and use of both the V1 and V2 Spectacles were before it. But let's talk about some of those advantages and what the Spectacles 3 really brought to the table. It brought an all-metal design, and actually this helped with both durability and the style. They moved away from the all-plastic look, and I actually like how the Spectacles 1 and 2 looked. They looked a lot more like a normal pair of sunglasses. These V3s carry a certain design aesthetic to them that a lot of people just could not stomach. They priced themselves out of the market and they designed themselves out of the market. A lot of people cannot pull off this design of sunglasses, and me included. Maybe it's just me, but I think anyone who wears these over the age of 20, it just doesn't look right on you. These were definitely built for teenagers or very young adults. In terms of tech though, we did see a major upgrade. We moved away from one camera to two. There is now one on each side of the glasses, and this allowed for you to capture both 3D video and images, as well as capturing the depth information, which allows you to do some really cool AR and 3D effects after the fact inside of the Snapchat app before posting or downloading and sharing elsewhere. Alongside the redesign of the glasses, they'd also redesigned the case, and this case was so much nicer than the first two generations because it was much smaller and it was canvas. So once you've taken them out, you can snap the case shut and it becomes a lot smaller and could be put into a smaller bag or even a pocket when needed. Even with all of these advances, it never took off. And the main reason for it was because of that price point, and two, the features that people were buying this for, the software, the AR, just doesn't work. I've been trying to use these glasses and the AR effects for around 4 weeks now, and I've been back and forth with Snapchat support to try and get any of these AR effects to work, but it just makes the Snapchat app hang, and I can just never do it. Apparently this is a widespread issue. A lot of people who own the Spectacles have just given up because Snap seems to have just stopped supporting it. 3 products, 3 fails. Snap have surely learned by now that maybe they're doing things wrong, right? Well, no, not really, because just after I bought the Spectacles 3, Snap came out with their newest product, and they're calling it the Pixie. The Pixie is a drone, and this little drone is basically built to follow you around and take lots of different shots while it is flying. So there are things that you can orbit around, it can follow you and do a few other cool effects as well. On paper, this is a great idea. Having a drone that you don't need to control to be able to capture some aerial shots of you and your friends and capture different angles that you might not have been able to before. However, in true Snap style, the actual execution of this is not great, to the point that I actually think this is going to fail once again before it even really hits market, because of a few major holes in its design. So let's talk about the Pixie and why Snap's latest drone just isn't going to take off. The Pixie is a 17-inch, basically FPV drone body with a much more user-friendly design. There's a dial on top that lets you change between a few different flight modes, DJI style. Then, simply pressing the button, it will take off, do the trick, come back, and land on your hand ready for the next time you want to use it. That's really cool, but it just doesn't work that well. Because of that 17-inch body and it only weighing 101 grams, when you actually take off, if there's any sort of wind, the drone just cannot cope. To the point that if you watch any video online of people actually using this thing, you see this drone just struggling to fly directly into the wind. There's no gimbal on this either, so any footage that you do actually get is probably not going to look that great because it's just going to be a wobbly mess. Let's say you can overlook some of that wobbling and you're using it in an area that's not going to have a ton of wind. Well, you best cough up a lot more money to buy a ton of extra batteries, because just one of the Pixie batteries will last you between 3 and 5 minutes of flight. That is ridiculous. Because of how much you'd actually want to use this thing, 3 to 5 minutes is simply not enough. Worst of all, for a company that uses ML in a lot of what they do, this product just doesn't use any of that ML ability. When it does one of its flights, it will simply just use timers rather than machine learning to understand where you are. It might try and track you a little bit and do a little bit of facial recognition for the follow me feature, but it is certainly not what I would expect from a company that prides itself on its camera and machine learning capabilities. What's the worst bit of all though? The price tag. This thing is $250, and that only comes with one battery. Nobody is going to be spending this much on a drone with such limited capabilities. You can't fly this with your phone. It only has the ability to do those very few set of tricks from the drone itself, using both the cameras on the front and the bottom. But once again though, the camera quality is excellent. Any footage that you can get off of this, if it's not highly windy, will look very, very good. And that's a reoccurring theme with Snap. All of their products have great cameras and great camera software. It's just that the software and hardware alongside it doesn't work very well at all. So what exactly is Snap up to? Because I know for a fact that Snap have some of the best hardware and software engineers in the world, coming from Microsoft, Meta, Qualcomm, and maybe even some of the AR startups of the world. Why are they producing such rubbish hardware? And I think the answer is it's not being built by the software and the hardware engineers. Snap don't expect these products to receive mass market adoption. They just want enough of a marketing buzz around it that Snap can get a little more investment for what they actually want to be doing, and that is the new style of spectacles. I'm not going to talk about those in this video because the hardware isn't out yet. They still have time to change it and make things better with it. But my takeaway is these products are not built for people to actually buy. These are simply built as marketing pieces that Snap feel like they could sell. But they should stop, because all that's doing is actually just leaving a sour taste in mine and many other people's mouths. We're not impressed by Snap's hardware offerings, so we've kind of abandoned the company. Maybe this has come with my age as well, that Snapchat just isn't something that I understand or can get behind. Anyway guys, what did you think of this video? Did you enjoy the more talkative themes within it? This isn't normally what I would do. I normally do my unboxings and my reviews, but I wanted to have a proper deep dive into Snap, its failed products, and why they have failed. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the video, what you think of Snap and its hardware in general. Of course, my name's been Robert, this has been Clue, and I will catch you in the next one. Adios.